Hey guys, welcome back to a new video. So if you all have not seen last video, I suggest you take just a second and go check out the previous video that I'll have posted somewhere up here. It's gonna kind of get you up to date on where we're at and what the next couple of videos are gonna entail with this project car. For all of those who are caught up, thanks for always tuning in and supporting the channel. As I said in the last video, we are going to hop onto the engine and start installing all of the previous parts that I've purchased for this engine. We've got a whole bunch of stuff here: water pump, crank pulley, alternator brackets, engine mounts. We got to tighten the carburetor all the way down, valve covered gaskets. We got a whole bunch of stuff that we need to install in this engine. So let's go ahead and take a second. I'm gonna go grab that stuff and then we'll meet back out here in the garage and we'll just go ahead and get started and crank out some stuff on this engine. Alright, so here's all of the goodies that we are going to be putting on this engine today, or at least hopefully most of it. And right here, I have a list. So I was going over what was left to do to get this car started and kind of progress on the build. And the thing is, man, it's a little overwhelming. There's a lot of stuff that's still left to do. There's a lot of engine stuff, there's a lot of wiring, there's a lot of body work still. So what I started doing is I started making little lists, and that's what I've got right here. So this right here is my engine prep list. So this is pretty much what we want to accomplish in this video. And of course, some of this stuff that's in the list, we can't really complete right now at this point in time, just because we don't have the parts and we don't have the engine in the engine bay. A lot of that stuff has to be done with the engine inside the car, so we know that everything lines up and works the way that it should. But the goal for today is to get most of that stuff on the list pretty much marked off. So there's gonna be a lot of time lapses in this video. There's gonna be a lot of stuff just kind of getting done, not a bunch of talking. But we gotta crank this stuff out, dude. We gotta get this engine ready to go into the engine bay so we can try to turn it over and start it for the first time. So guys, with that being said, let's go ahead and get started on installing all of these parts onto the engine. Good God. Holy shit, dude, really? stand. Well guys, like I always say, you win some, you lose some. This is the first time I've ever done something like this. And of course, the He-Man Brandon had to break one of the oil pan bolts. So I was tightening everything down, everything was going great. I got the oil pan set exactly where I needed it. And then I get down to this one, felt really weird, and it just freaking sheared off. So I just put some, I know it's really ghetto, but I just put some of the sealant inside there. I just hope it doesn't leak, man. That sucks. Well, guys, I'm pissed, so I'm gonna go inside, go to bed, wake up tomorrow, and we'll come out tomorrow and try to finish up some stuff on the engine. All right, guys, welcome back to the video. We're back out here in the garage, and I kind of want to talk about what happened about a day or so ago now, specifically what happened with the engine and the oil pan. Okay, so let me first preface this video section with, guys, learn from my mistakes. So if you can take anything away from this video, please take away any mistake that I run into so you all don't run into them when you're working on your project cars. So unfortunately, this whole sort of situation was my fault, and I'll kind of get into that here in just a second. But as you can tell from the video, I tightened the bolts that go into the oil pan way too tight. And there's a little bit of a reason why, and it's really stupid. I should have known, but yeah, I mean, it is what it is. Happens. All right, so with this engine, I want to do everything to the book, including torque specs for the engine. It's the first time I've built an engine, first time I've done any sort of work like this to an engine outside of the car. So I figured it'd be a great idea to go ahead and look up the torque settings for the particular bolts in the oil pan. I think some of you all probably know where this is going. So anyway, when I looked up the torque settings for the bolts on the oil pan, I saw 43. Now, 43 foot-pounds is a lot of force. And when I read that, I was kind of like, wow, that's super strong. I didn't think it'd be anywhere near that. But I figured, I kind of talked myself out of it. I was like, you know, it's an oil pan. Maybe it needs to be really super tight on there so it doesn't leak oil. And unfortunately, it was right there in front of me, but I didn't read. I assumed it was 43 foot-pounds, and it was actually 43 inch-pounds. Now, inch-pounds, it's equivalent to like 4 or 5 foot-pounds, which totally makes sense. That is what I was expecting. That is probably what it should have been. I mean, these bolts, that gasket's pretty much taking care of all the leakage portion, and these bolts are small. There's no way they can be torqued to 43 foot-pounds, but unfortunately, I was stupid. I didn't double check. I just assumed it was foot-pounds. And I pretty much went from there. Now, with that being said, I do have a little bit of a saving grace. I did take that torque wrench and I set it to 43, like I thought it said to, and I started torquing down on those bolts in the bottom of the oil pan. And the first bolt that I did, I actually had 2 or 3 cranks of the torque wrench, and it didn't feel like it was getting tight at all. And I was like, look, there is no way this is 43 foot-pounds. So I just immediately at that point, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna put the torque wrench down. I'm gonna snug them all up, get them ready to go, and then I'll come back with a torque wrench and touch them after I verify what torque setting it should be. As you can see in the footage earlier, I went ahead and took a wrench and kind of tightened everything down by hand. And unfortunately, the last bolt that I got to was the one that I used a torque wrench on. And I decided to just double check and make sure it was tight. And as soon as I put that wrench on there and tried to tighten it, it snapped the head off the bolt. So yeah, that sucks. And to add insult to injury, I'm sure you all have probably noticed, but I've got this awesome looking Harry Potter mark on my forehead. That was actually from the day after I came out here to kind of clean up a little bit. And I was inspecting down under the oil pan to look at that sheared bolt. And I stood up, of course, stood up and hit this little fitting on the bottom of the carbs. That was great, and it was right before Thurby, so I went to Thurby to bet on some horses and hang out with some friends, and of course, you know, you dress and you look super nice. And then I got this right on my forehead, so it is what it is. So if you all take anything away from this little mishap with the engine, it's basically just make sure that your torque settings are right. Make sure you've got your torque wrench set to the proper torque settings. Inch pounds is not foot pounds. And you can really strip and rip the heads off some bolts if you get those mixed up. What can go wrong will go wrong. I think that's Murphy's Law, and that definitely applies here. And it's specifically when you're working on anything that has to do with cars. As embarrassing as it is for me to admit that that's what I did, I really hope that because I'm doing so, you all don't make the same mistake in the future. So anyway, with that being said, we need to tackle the sheared off bolt inside the oil pan. So I went to Lowe's and I bought this, and I think this is gonna be enough to hopefully pull that bolt out of the block. Now, I really hope I didn't strip the threads. I probably did, to be honest, but I'm gonna at least try this and see if I can get that stuck bolt out. If this doesn't work, then I don't know, maybe I'll just kind of leave it for later. It's not rusted in there, it's just in there tight, and it's a pretty small bolt, so it's not rusted in there, I know that, and it probably has some of that gasket sealer on it, which might actually help pulling it out. Anyway, what we're gonna do now is we are going to flip the engine over like we did before, and I'm gonna tackle that sheared off bolt to see if we can get it out of the block. And then as soon as we get done with that, we will just continue on with building, or I guess refreshing, this engine. How funny would it be if this actually worked? Did that just work? Oh, yes. Oh my God, are you serious right now? Holy crap, that went so much easier than I thought it was going to. Holy crap, dude. There you go. Literally got it out with a screwdriver. I cannot believe that it came out that easy. Wow. Well, guys, I'm gonna take that as a win. I mean, I was able to get that out without even really using that bolt extractor, the one that I bought that's right there. I mean, hey, I'll take it. It looks like it wasn't really in there all that tight. I'm sure that the gasket sealer helped it from, like, I don't know, embedding itself into the steel or something like that. But I mean, you saw what I did. I just took a screwdriver, made a little indentation in it, and then I was able to just screw it out with a screwdriver. Wow, that's... Whew, I'll take that as a win, definitely, for sure. So with that, I should probably call it, because I feel like I might have used up all of my luck for today, but I'm not. We gotta hop back on this and try to get some more stuff done. So now that I have it all flipped over, I'm actually gonna move to these 3 bolts right here. So I didn't actually realize this, but these shouldn't be in there. I need to take these out because I'm gonna be using this, bracket. This is basically gonna mount right here, and there's some posts. Here it is. So basically these posts screw in like that and hold that bracket in place. So that bracket holds the crank position sensor in place, and that crank position sensor picks up the teeth on this trigger wheel that is going to be connected to this crank shaft pulley. Alright guys, so I think that's gonna do it for today's video. I hope you all enjoyed it. As much as I don't want to stop, I think it is a good point to stop here, mainly because I am still waiting on a couple of parts for this engine to get it pretty much ready to go into the car and crank over for the first time. So you might have seen in a previous clip that I tried to modify the timing belt cover down there to accommodate for the T3 crank pulley and trigger wheel on the back. Well, I originally wanted to run the crank pulley with the trigger wheel mounted on the back, and the reason being is I like the color of this pulley, and I think it looks a little bit better with just the teeth showing in the back than it does the full trigger wheel. But unfortunately, you can see right there where the bolt and the boss of the pulley, they're pretty much the same height, and I'm running into an issue with this fitting on the engine, and let me show you what I'm talking about. So maybe I'm doing something wrong, but T3 did say that you can run this pulley on this engine with the trigger wheel mounted on the back. But if I put this actually on the crank, I have an issue where the bolt and the, actually even with it trimmed, the bolt is running into this piece here, which I know I can probably remove this, but I think it's a pretty important piece to make sure that this belt stays where it needs to be. But the bolts kind of hit this, and then also even after trimming, you can see I took a big section out of the middle there in order to fit the larger hub of that pulley, or I'm sorry, the larger boss of that pulley. Let me just mount this in here real quick. So that's how it should be. But unfortunately still, with this going on, the pulley would fit over and the boss of the pulley would fit there, but the head of the bolt is still going to cause me issues. It's going to hit this piece, I'm going to have to trim it more, and then if I trim this more, I'm going to have to either remove or trim this piece too. So I don't know if that's really the way I'm supposed to do it, but it's just, it seems like that the head of that bolt is just kind of fouling on some stuff. I thought maybe I could run them from the front, which this portion is threaded inside there, but the trigger wheel, you can tell, is not. So I have to have the head on the back side. Anyway, I've decided to go ahead and buy the adapter so I can mount the trigger wheel in the front, and that's on the way and should be here later this week. That'll pretty much take care of all of this issue, and we'll be able to run the pulley on the engine. But the unfortunate part is you're not going to see this. You're pretty much going to see this, which, I don't know, looks kind of cool, but I do like seeing this anodized gold a little bit more. But anyway, we're waiting on that piece to arrive, and it should be here later this week. But other than that, we got a lot of stuff done. A lot of stuff on that list, which is somewhere over there. But we got a lot of stuff done on that list. We got the mounts and the alternator bracket all mounted up. This is looking nice. Water pump's been replaced. Timing belt and the tensioner for the timing belt has been replaced. This has been trimmed up. The carbs have been actually mounted fully to the engine Oh, a big thing, the oil pan. The oil pan has been replaced, it's been sealed up, and I've also installed this little bracket that's gonna hold the crank position sensor. Again, D4A makes this bracket. I'll put a link down in the description below in case anybody wants to look into it or pick it up. But this is how the trigger wheel is going, I guess, to work with the engine. This is how we're gonna figure out what cylinders need to fire when. And this oil pan looks really cool. It's super nice, and it looks a lot better than the original one that was on there, which is sitting over here. And I don't know if I ever showed this, but this oil pan was dented pretty bad. But you can see the oil pan was dented really bad. It had hit something and dented in, and it didn't look good, so I wanted to replace this oil pan. And originally I wasn't going to, but I'm really glad that I did, and let me show you why. So I don't know how much of this you're gonna be able to see, but this oil pan dented, right? So it got hit on the bottom. Now, if you all remember when I cut open the oil filter that was on this engine, I'll insert the clip here. Well, I honestly don't know if that was worth it. I don't know if you can really see in there. I mean, it seems pretty clean. Those little black specks in there, I don't think it's metal. I think it might just be paint from when I tried to get this thing open. We found little specks of black paint, which I actually thought was from the oil filter itself. Well, come to find out, not only was it super sludgy on the bottom of that oil pan, but you can also see, there we go, there's a couple pieces. Look at that. So I don't know if you can really tell, but that's paint chips. That right there and that right there, those are paint chips, and that's actually off of the bottom of the pan on the inside. If you can see in there. Yeah, that shows it really good right there. Do you see that right there? The paint was chipping on the inside of this oil pan. So there's all sorts of nasty gunk down in here. You can see that's just like sludgy, but it's also paint chips that are inside this. So I'm actually super glad that I replaced this oil pan because I don't want any of that stuff getting into the engine. And originally I wasn't going to replace it, but I'm actually super glad that I did. So anyway, if anybody dents their oil pan, go ahead and swap it just in case. You don't want that paint. I'm actually surprised they painted the inside of this. Maybe this is an aftermarket pan, but yeah, that can't be good for an engine. So anyway. But anyway, I know I'll probably have to end up doing the oil pan again just because of that whole mishap with the bolt that got sheared off, even though I was able to remove it. I'm not confident that it's sealed properly on that side. And also, I'm sure some of you all noticed I did not do the windage tray as well, which I know is a huge, I probably should have done that, but I just didn't want to. I wanted to get the oil pan on there. I want to get oil in there. I figured it was probably gonna leak anyway. And I just didn't want to pull the windage tray off, clean all that. It's just dumb. It's just, I was just lazy. I didn't want to do it. But I went ahead and put the oil pan on anyway. This should at least hold oil for the first crank, and everything should work. And I don't know, maybe it won't leak. I will not be surprised if I have to pull it back off and redo it, but that's fine. We can do that in a later video. All right, guys, I think that covers about everything. If you all enjoyed this video, please smash that thumbs up button. Also, if you want to be notified when more content like this comes out on this channel, make sure to press that subscribe button below and consider ticking the little bell notification. Guys, stay tuned for more AE86 content. Hopefully next video we will have this engine completely done. Anyways, stay tuned for more AE86 content, and until next time, I'll see you later.